Okay. Welcome everyone to Carlentini Omaha and beyond, August 26, 2025 edition. And we have a special guest with us today, Bob Sorrentino, podcaster. And um, Bob recently recorded a podcast with me, and he has another podcast scheduled with Sherry Kanger on October, well, late October, I forget the date, but
Nuccio Belfiore
Lucio,
will be joining as well.
yes. So
Hope so.
that should be a good one. We should make sure we're subscribed to Bob's podcast so we get the notifications. And I'm going to let Bob introduce himself. So, Bob, why don't you go ahead?
Uh, sure. Thanks, Nick. So my name is Bob Sorrentino, and I guess about 6 years ago, a few years after I retired, I had been researching my family for many years, and I decided to create a blog to share my stories and what I found out and how I did my research and things like that. And after a year or so, that was fun, but it was only one way. So I decided to start the podcast so I could interview people who could tell their stories, which had turned out to be fascinating. I think to date I've interviewed over 300 people, and it's just in some cases just people doing their own research. In some cases it's people, there's authors, other podcasters, genealogists, and it's been very fun and very rewarding to do that. And my families, my mom's family, my mom's parents were born in Torito, Bari, and my dad's parents were both born different towns, but in and around the Naples area. And then eventually, before they came here, they lived in Circola, but their families were living in Naples, the city. And so I put together like a 12 or 13 slide presentation, and I could go through. I mainly wanted to concentrate on my my paternal grandmother's family, because it's an interesting story, as I found out, and I'll explain how, that they were noble families and then led me to royalty, the European royalty. So Nick, if I could share my screen. And you guys see it?
I can see it.
Yes, we see it.
So let me go back to the beginning. That helps. So how did I find my royal roots? The two families, my grandmother's two families were Piumalo and Caracciolo. So anybody, if you're from the southern Italy, specifically around the Naples area, you probably definitely know the name Caracciolo. When I was growing up, we had this card in the photo album. And if you remember, the photo albums used to have the black pages with the little corners in them and all of that. And we had this card in there. And my mother would tell me that my grandmother's father was a count or a duke or something like that. And so she had brought with her the cards from Italy, and they're about the size of an index card, so bigger than a card that we would have today, a business card. And you could see it has his name, Nicola Pirmalo, from the Dukes of Capricotta, and that's the crest up there on the top. I didn't know much about it, and nobody really talked about it that much, other than those stories that I heard growing up. So when I started doing my research, the very first thing that popped up was a page from the Libro d'Oro. And I found, you could see the little arrow there, Amelia Caracciolo marrying Count Nicola Piromallo in 1882. So the names made sense because my godmother, her name was Amelia, so she would have been named after her grandmother, of course. Count Nicola, that made sense. The year that they were married all made sense. But I had never heard the name Caracciolo before. And you could see the two crests. One is Piromallo Capici Piccicelli. The other one is Caracciolo Rosso. So I called my cousin who lived with my grandparents, and I said, "Did you ever hear the name Caracciolo before?" And she said, "Well, of course, that's Nanny." We call my grandmother Nanny. That's Nanny's mother's name. And I said, "Do you know how famous these people are, where they came from, and that they were, how noble they were?" And she said, "Well, she used to tell us that there was an admiral in the family, that there was a saint in the family, and that her cousin was a princess. But we just thought she was a batty old lady and left it at that." So I said, "Well, her cousin was a princess because her grandfather was a prince." So that led me on this amazing journey, and I'll show you a couple of things in a minute. So that's her mother's family. And this line goes back to 950 in Naples. I'm a direct descendant. I can trace direct. So I have this picture of my grandmother here. And this was in Naples, and I'm guessing about 1900. She was probably 17, 18, something like that. And this is her father. Only picture we have of him. And this is his second wife, because my great grandmother passed away when she was only 41. And I don't know why. Nobody seemed to be able to explain or know what happened. And he married this other woman, Rosa Cortiero. And Rosa had two daughters. So my dad's half first cousin is actually younger than I am, because he married Rosa in 1913, and she had children in 1921 and 1923. So doing my research, I knew I had the right family because I found cousins. Actually, one of the cousins found me, Cinzia Piromallo. She's my fourth cousin, and she found me on Facebook. And once we started comparing notes, it confirmed what I was pretty sure that I knew, that I descended from the same family that she descended from, the Dukes of Capricota from the Piromallo side. And no one from that family came to the United States other than my grandmother and her
Meeting is
aunt.
being recorded.
So as I was going through newspapers.com here in America, I came across this obituary from my grandmother's father. And I think it was 1926 or 1929. But basically it says that they lived in Scotch Plains, New Jersey, and it said she received news of the death of her father, Count Nicola Piromallo, from the Dukes of Capricota. And that he left two daughters. Those were the daughters from a second wife, and the rest of his family. And he had one sister in New York. That was an interesting thing, because you wouldn't think that you were going to find obituaries from somebody in Italy in a New Jersey newspaper in the 1920s. So this is the Piromallo family from two publications. One is the Libro d'Oro, and the other one is the Nobility of Naples. This is my third great grandmother, Donna Beatrice, the 8th Duchess of Capricota. That was her first husband, my third great grandfather. Interesting thing here was my third great grandfather's name was Piromallo. She was Capici Piccicelli. Her son, who inherited the title, he combined his mother's name and his father's name because he didn't want to lose his mother's name. Normally, he just would have taken the name Piumalo, but because Capici Piccicelli was such an old family, he wanted to preserve that as the Duke of Capricotta. The way my cousin Cinzia explained it was Piumalo had the money and Capici Piccicelli had the name. That they were broke, but the Piumalos had the money. I don't know if that's true or not. In any event, it doesn't matter these days because everything is gone anyway, so it doesn't much matter. This just lists, where he was born, where he passed away. I found out later on that the family had, as far as we know, Pio Malo had 7 homes in Italy. There's one of them was behind me. Throughout southern Italy, Ischia, and also a home in Messina. The bottom document here is from the nobility of Naples, and it talks about when the Piomalos first came. The first one was Count Domenico, who came from Spain sometime before 1528. And he was the captain of the Crotone Castle, and apparently died there. And then it talks about how the families were merged and all of that stuff. So when I was researching it, what I found out, which Cincy and I both found out, was because our uncle changed the name, that our Piumalo families, were no longer listed in the documentation, only his direct descendants, which normally, if he had carried the name just Piumalo, everybody would have been there, and that was making me crazy for a long time. So this is just a picture of us at Palazzo Piumalo. This one picture is from Montebello. I'm sorry, this one's from Fossato, the big one. This one here, I'm here with my cousin Cinzia on the balcony. The owner was gracious enough to let us into the home. And then this is myself and my family on the steps. And the owner actually was there, even though the place is in disrepair, he let us in. And he was gracious enough to let us in. Here we are in the archives in Naples, and they were showing us documentation for the Caracciolo family in these books, and all hand-drawn coats of arms, and naturally things going back almost close to 1,000 years. Some of the records, they had one record from 1100 that they showed us. This photo over here is the home, the Palazzo in Capricotta, which is now the town hall. And this vestment was one, the priest told us, one of many that my third great grandmother had made in Naples and gave to the church in Capricotta. And you could see that it has the family crest on it, her crest. So that's the Capici Piccicelli. And the vestments were, I guess, about 160, 170 years old, and they still use them. It was amazing to see it. And the quality was just incredible, just totally mind-blowing. This is the index from the Libro d'Oro showing the Caracciolo families. It's a huge family. There are actually 3 families, Rosso, Pizziquizzi, and Del Sol. My grandmother, or my great-grandmother, her family was from the princes of Torchiarolo. They descended from the princes of Avellino. And then if you go back all the way to these ancient lines, you could find everybody. And like I said, it's a huge family throughout southern Italy. They wound up marrying into the Spanish nobility French nobility. So as a result, that's how I was able to make the connection to all of royal houses in Europe. Very difficult to do for someone from Italian descent. And it was all because I had that one card. This is just a brief on the Caracciolo roots. Started the first document that they found was 976 Teodoro. And they've just been there forever. I mean, like I said, over 1,000 years. Prince Don Ambrogio was the first prince of Torquirolo. And he's I think my fifth or sixth great grandfather. And in the Libro de Oro, it's really neat because they list all their titles, and he's a knight of the Golden Fleece, and then who they married and all of that stuff. So you could see he actually married a Spanish noblewoman, Maria Francesca Fendi Rivera. Her father was the Marquis of Villanova. So there's some interesting history when you get in there. We eventually went to Avellino. This chair was my eighth great grandfather's chair. It's now used by the priests, and they let us sit in it. Quite amazing. This is me dressed as the prince. They had a surprise for me waiting when I got there. They allowed me to take this home, so I have it. Maybe I'll wear it one day for Halloween. This is Prince Marino, my ninth great grandfather, and me. So not an exact resemblance, but it's pretty close. My second great grandfather, and I only put this in here because it's an interesting story. He married someone from Switzerland, Elisa Moore. And how I found her tree was really interesting because, of course, there were no nobles in Switzerland. It didn't exist then. It doesn't exist now. But she came from a prominent family, and her father, I found him in the book of the cavalry officers from Naples in the 1850s. And he was listed as, he eventually became a general, I think. But he was, at that time, he was a captain in the Swiss Guard, which I didn't realize. I thought they only guarded the Pope, but actually they also were mercenaries. And a lot of them were assigned to the Neapolitan army back in the early 1800s. And I contacted somebody. I just put out there on the internet looking for places, and I found this site, and they said, if you have an ancestor from Switzerland, write us in English, Italian, or German, and we'll see if we could help. So I gave them this name, and they sent me a link that has hand-drawn trees from Lucerne, Switzerland, going back to 1300. Amazing documents, really quite incredible. This is hard to read, but there's a gentleman here in the United States. He was a West Point graduate, later a U.S. Army officer, who does genealogy for people who have gateway ancestors from England. So in other words, people who came in to the United States from England in the 1600s, the Mayflower, all that kind of stuff. So I had seen one of his charts, and I said, I'm connected to these people. Do you think you could do a chart for me? And he said, I don't know. I've never done it in Italian before. I said, but if you tell me who your grandparents are, who you think they are, I'll see if I could do the chart. So I had sent him Ambrogio Caracciolo, this one here, and he made this chart for me. And what it is basically everybody on this chart is one of my grandfathers or grandmothers. If you see green, it branches off to another person. Red titles in red were crusaders, and then crosses were saints. And then there's also two popes that I descend directly from. So with that, here's how you could reach me. That's my blog. My YouTube channel is Italian Roots and Genealogy. Facebook is Italian Roots and Genealogy. That group has about 13,000 members in it. And then if you want to contact me, there's my genealogy email address. And then I wrote a book about it. And the book is called Farmers and Nobles because my mother's family were farmers from Torito Bari, and just, wonderful people, salt of the earth type of people, great people. And then, so I tell their stories. As far as I know, I got back to 1750. And then I talk a little bit about some of the people that I interviewed and how I've done my research. So that's my little presentation. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, thank you, Bob. That was great.
Thank you, Bob.
So we do have questions that were posted in the chat log. So I'm just going to kind of start at the beginning. Joni Garrow asked everyone to put their city, state, country that you're from, so that you know who's in this group. And I also asked people to provide their current city of residence as well as their place of birth. And I see you responded to Joni's prompt, and says you're originally from Queens, New York City. Maternal grandparents from Torito Bari and paternal grandparents from Napoli. And Sherry Kanger, born in Omaha, Nebraska, grandparents Carlentini and Bari, Campobasso, Naples. Mary Kay, born in Omaha and grandparents from Carlentini. John Buddha lives in Omaha and I believe was born there. Grandparents Carlentini. Michael Pipillo is our prize winner for the furthest distance. He was born in Melbourne, Australia, and his parents and previous generations are from Ferla, Syracuse, and Idoni in the Enna province, all in Sicily. Perla.
Perla con la S.
And Donna Shipley lives in Omaha, born and raised. Father was born in Lentini, came to the U.S. in 1925. And her mother's parents are from Carlentini. And Joni put the podcast link that you and I did. Silvana was utilizing our automatic translation that we have. We added that to our Zoom account. So Sherry, okay, first question. What year are the photos taken in? And Sherry, maybe you want to clarify that question?
Yeah, in the very beginning, he showed a couple of pictures of people. The dress appears to be early 1900s, but I'm curious to know what year. A lot of us who have ancestors from Sicily don't have photos of our loved ones. But on my German and Danish, my European side, we do have photos that date pretty far back. So I'm curious to know about the photos that you found. And does anybody in your family have any physical characteristics that are similar? Thank you.
Yeah, so the photo of my grandmother, I have two of her from Naples. Well, actually, there's a third, but it's hard to see. But that one is the earliest one we have. I don't know the exact year. I'm guessing around 1900. The second one I have with her, I think was probably like 1902, 1903 or something like that. I do have one of her with her brothers and her mother-in-law and father-in-law just before they came to America, like around 1914, because I could see from the ages of my aunts and uncles and knowing how old they were at the time that that's probably when it was. And they probably took pictures to remember each other by.
Mhm.
One of the most interesting things that happened to me when we went there a few years ago was my cousin Nicola, who's my father's half first cousin, and the one I said is younger than I am. He didn't tell us where he was taking us, and he took us to Torre del Greco, which my father had told me once that he had family there, but he didn't say who. And my father's two first cousins, both in their 90s, were there. And they had photos not only of their siblings, so my grandmother's brothers and sisters, but they had my parents' wedding photo from 1944 that my grandmother had sent them. My cousin also had a picture that my grandmother took in America that I had this photo. But he had the photo that she mailed to her father. And on the back, it's the back cover of the book. On the back in Italian, it says, "From your dear daughter to my father, so you never forget." So she knew that she was never going to see her father again. It was quite touching to see that, you know.
Io
Absolutely.
volevo,
Thank
scusate, io
Thank you,
volevo
Bob,
dire
for that.
una cosa a Bob, volevo dire solo una cosa, non fare una domanda. Il suo cognome, Sorrentino e Caracciolo, è molto diffuso a Lentini, qui vicino a casa, vicino a noi. Ci sono molti Caracciolo e molti Sorrentino. Chissà se non sono anche suoi parenti.
So I understood the first part
Invece,
of that, but somebody needs to translate the second part if they
Yeah,
can.
I'll do it. Yeah, Savannah says that in the area where we come from, that is Lentini, Carlentini, it's in province of Syracuse. There are a lot of people whose name is Sorrentino and Caracciolo. Do you know whether you have any relatives around us? No.
Okay. So Sorrentino, as far as I know, there's no one from Sicily. I was mostly around the Naples area. My grandfather was born in Pagani, and his father was born in Nocera Superiore. So
Sí.
I
in
don't, as
Calabria.
far as I know, no.
No.
Caracciolo is so big. There's so many families that possibly going back, hundreds or even more years, that there's some connection there, but none that I know of. The only thing I do know is that Caracciolo had a palazzo in Messina, right by the port.
Eh sì, penso che questi Caracciolo di Lentini provengono da Messina. Quei nomi provengono da Messina.
She thinks that Caracciolo in Lentini come from Messina. So the origin is from Messina. I know a lot of, I used to know a lot of Caracciolo in Naples when I used to study there. There is also the seafront in Naples. I don't know whether you know, that is called Lungomare
Via Caracciolo.
Caracciolo.
Certo,
Via
perché
Caracciolo.
era un ammiraglio, mi pare, Caracciolo.
Sì. And also in Genoa, there are some people in Genoa whose name is Caracciolo because they were the followers of these sailors, or that maybe nobles who followed all the kings and the queens from Spain, I think. But there are a lot of people whose name is Caracciolo who have this noble origin.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's so huge. And if you know Via Carbonara in Naples, my grandmother, my second my great grandmother was born right on Via Carbonara, and she died in Via Carbonara. So my grandmother was born in Circola, but what I think is that my great grandmother must have gotten sick, and they brought her to the family in Naples because she didn't die in Circola. She died where all the Caracciolo's were from her family.
But these are all small town all around Naples. So I know these places. So Nocera, Pagani, they are all just. And also, you also mentioned San Sebastiano al Vesuvio, that is up on the Vesuvio, on the Vulcano up there. They are all small towns all around there.
Yeah, well, my grandma, like I said, she was born in Circola. That's where her family,
Sì,
that's where her parents were. They
sì,
had
sì.
they had a palazzo in Massa di Soma.
Sì.
And they owned a lot of land around there going
Mm.
back to the early 1800s. It
Mhm.
was quite fascinating because I didn't know that. There's also in Circola, there's one of the roads is via Count Pirmalo. So
Sì, sì, sì.
Bob, as you're mentioning all of these place names, I'm wondering if I could grab the screen back and
it's
um, what I would like to do is use Google Maps to um, show where some of these places are located on the map. So obviously Naples is kind of a center of interest because you mentioned there was a street in Naples. Um,
yeah,
so
Via Carbonara.
so maybe what we'll do is put directions in and what was that via?
Via,
Via
How do
Carbonara,
you spell it?
like carbon, carbonara.
yeah,
That's correct.
Okay, so that gives us some idea of where via Carbonara
Mm.
is, which um, it's not showing up as a street name.
It should be the other part of the city where the Villa Comunale is, I
mhm.
think, because
Okay.
Via Caracciolo is on the other side. I used to live there, where Duomo is. Can you see that? Just
Yes,
yeah,
right there. Yeah, it's by the
yeah.
Duomo.
I used to live there.
Okay, so why don't you give me one of those other town names that you were talking about?
So the other one is Circola, Cercola.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's not far outside of Naples then.
Yes,
It
yes,
shows it's 12 or 13 kilometers.
yeah. But
Um,
there are all houses without any interruptions. It's highly density populated. The area is very populated. So
mhm.
you never know when a municipality finishes and another one starts.
So let's
Right.
add another city, Bob.
So another one is Massa di Soma, Massa.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is. Then that should be right, very close to Circola too.
So,
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's Circola and Massa di Soma is here. And were there others?
The other one where my cousins live now is Torre del Greco.
it is on the sea. It's
Yeah,
down there where Portici and you go down Ercolano, Torre del Greco.
yeah, there you
It's
go.
very close to Pompeii. It's on the way to Pompeii.
Yep.
Torre del Greco è la
Okay,
città
so
del corallo.
Sì, sì.
and this is Vesuvius right here, I assume.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, right. They
That's
all
right.
live right around that kind of
Oh,
area.
I see Pompeii down here. Okay. So so that's very interesting part of the world.
Mm.
Yeah. So we wound up going to all of those places when we were there, which was very exciting because I didn't really know. Now, if you want to go to Calabria, if you put in Fassato, how do you spell it? Fassato, I think it is.
Well,
Or
we'll
FO.
come back to that, but I did have a question for you about the books that you mentioned. One was called the Libro de Oro,
Yeah,
and then there was another one on the noble families of Naples.
yeah, it's the Nobili di Napolitani. Napolitani? Yeah, Napolitani.
Nobili.
Okay,
Nobili.
so
Okay.
yeah, if you don't mind typing that one into the chat log for us, that would be helpful.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so my question was, are these books available online or only in libraries?
They both have websites. The Libro di Oro is it's really just kind of like a list of, it's not a book per se. It's really just an index of all of these noble families. Probably about 60% of them, if you click on the name, it'll explode into a chart or a list of all the people in that family that had the title. So it's not really a book per se. I shouldn't say that. The website isn't. They do have a book that you could get, but it's like ridiculously expensive. So I never bothered. The Nobili Napolitani is it's more of a website and more of a historical kind of document. So in that one, you could click on a name and it'll give you more of the history of a specific family. And then it also talks about the seats of Naples and a little bit more history about the nobles in Naples than anything else. But again, there is a book, but the website is pretty good, and it translates into English too. So
Let's see if there were any other questions per se. Sherry wrote, what inspired you to begin your journey of ancestral discovery?
I, I always liked history. So I think it was just because I liked history so much that I felt like I wanted to find out about the history of my own family. And, like I said, I had that piece of history. I had that card. And that had a lot to do with me, starting the research. Never thinking I would find but I never thinking I would find what I found out. Not in a million years would I think that.
Okay, Bob, I got a question for you. As far as the nobility, they probably set a lot of laws and were the main focus of, say politics in that region. So they probably in some way had farms and other people underneath them, correct?
Yes.
Like they would have in England if they had a hierarchy. So were monies and stuff being pulled from those farmers to support the hierarchy?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I didn't know this until just a few years ago. The nobility did not pay taxes. They lived in Naples. They did not live in these towns. They had their fiefdoms or whatever. And once or twice a year, to your point, they would go there. They would either collect money or they would collect the crops or whatever. And like we've seen in TVs and movies, they lived the high life. I'll tell you one embarrassing story that I heard when we were there. This was in Massa di Soma, and they told me we were in the courtyard of one of these homes, and they said, "Look up, and you see that window on the second floor with the balcony." I said, "Yeah." they said, well, your third great grandfather, on his birthday, he would roast the pig, and he would give the food and wine to the people and the serfs or farmers, whatever you want to call them. And then when they got drunk, he would throw money out the window and watch them fight over it. I was like, oh boy, that's not a very nice guy. But for the most part, when we were there and we were going to these towns, the people treated me very, very special. And I asked the similar question that you asked. I said, why? Why are they treating me like this? And they said, you have to understand that before, well, two things. We don't forget anything. But before the unification of Italy, the nobles were in charge of everything. They ran everything. They created farms. They created industry. They supported the church. And for the most part, most of them were very, very good to the people. Of course, like anything else, there were a few who abused it, but they said we have a very strong attachment even to today to some of these noble families, which I found, very, very interesting.
And that leads me to a question that was asked by Michael Pupilo. He says, were all the properties held by the family returned to the state?
For the most part, yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know if it was sold off, if it was taken. I think it's probably a combination of both. I know that as far as I know, there's nothing, at least in the Piramalo family, still around. Caracciolo may be a little bit different. But in Avellino, for example, the Palazzo is now the town hall, and in Capricotta, the same thing. So the property behind me in Fossato, that's owned by a man who his family bought it, I think, in the 1960s. So it's privately owned. It's not owned by the government, and the land around there is owned by him. So it's probably a combination of both. I know I didn't inherit anything, I could tell you that. But some of the birth certificates and death certificates, they list the occupation for some of these people. In some cases, it says property owner. One of them, it just for the occupation, it said rich man.
Yeah, one that I see a lot is possidente.
Sì.
Possidente. Well, it's interesting to compare your noble experience with our noble experience in Carlentini. I mean, we certainly had some noble families that were there, and I see their names. A lot of them became mayors, and so in the more recent branches of your family, have you looked at, their activities or the land that they own or their houses or any of those kind? I mean, you obviously have this one, which, do you know when that left the family?
This one left the family in around 1960. This was, I think, probably one of the last ones to go, as far as I know. The other ones, I don't really know. There's one Villa Piramalo in Ischia, which I think part of it is still owned by somebody in the family. But for the most part, Caracciolo, I think they were a wealthier family and certainly had more tentacles and more ties. And I think, to your point, some of them were more mayors and everything. But, all of these people, they still carry their titles. They all still carry the titles. In fact, through the some from some king back in the 1700s. Everyone with the name Pirmalo in Italy can call themselves Marquis or Marchesa. My cousin, they call her Marchesa. They were calling her Marchesa Pirmalo, when we were there. So, the titles still exist, but any kind of wealth is pretty much all gone, maybe in the hands of a few people here and there.
Yeah,
Nick, posso dire una cosa?
some of the names that I know of that are noble, well, obviously the Beneventanos of Lentini. Nuccio, can you think of some of the other noble families of the area?
Yeah, the one, yeah, I can't remember the name.
A Carlentini c'era il barone Riso.
Barone Riso,
Lucio.
yes. This is
Noi
the
avevamo
one.
Barone Riso, yeah,
Sì.
Barone
a
Riso is
Carlentini,
a big name.
aspetta, a Carlentini c'era il
Poi-
barone Riso, a Lentini
Sì,
c'era Beneventano
Beneventano, ok.
e a
E a
Villasmundo c'era il marchese di San Giuliano.
San
E
Giuliano, ok.
tutte e tre queste persone, se tu vai nella piazza di Villasmundo e
Sì,
Nick c'è stato con me, ci
sì.
sono le statue di queste tre persone che erano i nobili del territorio di Lentini, Carlentini e Villasmundo, perché Villasmundo per un periodo è stato anche sotto l'egida di Carlentini, non era Comneniti, era
Mm,
tantissimi anni fa. E questi erano i nobili che possedevano tutti i terreni, le case, eccetera, eccetera. Ma poi con l'unità d'Italia la loro ricchezza è finita perché molti beni sono stati confiscati dai piemontesi e è cambiato il regno perché prima c'era Ferdinando, insomma, il regno di Napoli e poi questo regno è fallito, per cui tutti i nobili si sono trovati in molta difficoltà dopo l'unità d'Italia. Hanno dovuto vendere, non avevano più i proventi che potevano avere prima e quindi non si potevano permettere il lusso delle case, di tutto quello che avevano. E a mano le hanno cedute.
mm.
E adesso ci sono pochissime persone che ancora possiedono le loro case nobiliari perché non si possono mantenere, ci vuole
Mm.
una quantità di denaro enorme.
Esatto. A meno che non so, si dedicano a altre attività tipo turistiche, di accoglienze
Turistiche.
e magari usano queste grandi case come alberghi, come hotel. Bob,
Sì,
did you
anche
get what Silvana said?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, would you translate, please?
Yes, please. So Savannah said that we got three big families, three nobles family all around Carlentini, Lentini, Francofonte, Villasmundo. These were the Barone Riso, whose big estate was in Palermo. The remains of the big beautiful the beautiful building that we used to have is the chapel that we visited last week. This is a shame. So they had all the possessions over there. So all the lands, all the farming land was in Carlentini. Then Barone Beneventano, that is in Lentini. Giusy Sciacca has written a novel about this. You know, the story di rabbia né di...
di
com'era?
rabbia e d'amore, mi pare, di rabbia e
La rabbia d'amore.
o al
The
contrario,
setting...
d'amore di rabbia.
Sì, the setting of Giusy Sciacca's novel is Barone Beneventano, that used to live in Catania but had all the possessions in Lentini. This is still a beautiful palace to visit. The third one is
Marchese
in
di San
Villasmundo,
Giuliano.
Marchese di San Giuliano, that is also connected to the royal family, the British royal family, the English royal family.
Anche
Because I
adesso.
remember, yes, Prince Charles came over there and visited when he was very young. I remember this visit. And they still have a big estate there, a big house. But usually they have devoted to farming, but small farming, not as big as they used to have, because as Silvana said, after the unification of Italy, they couldn't afford to keep on this feud. We call this a feud. This was a sort of feudal system, okay, that was not in use anymore, because also, you know, the country got richer and richer, and more people got richer, and so the middle class raised, and then of course it was difficult for these people to keep on doing their own business that was linked to farming. Farming was not more the challenge. The challenge was industry, modernization. This is what they did. And then this is the reason why it changed. But we still have some remains, some places that are still owned by these nobles. Only a few, actually.
Il Marchese di San Giuliano ultimamente sta usando la sua proprietà, la sua casa, per fare il turismo di alta classe. Infatti quest'anno, quando è venuto Nick e siamo stati a Villa Smundo, volevamo andare a vedere questo marchesato, diciamo, ma non ci hanno fatto entrare. Ho parlato con la persona che si occupa di tutto il marchesato e ci ha detto no, non si può entrare. Per entrare ci vogliono più di 200 euro solo per la visita. Figurati, no? Quindi ormai quella cosa è rimasta chiusa. Ma io mi ricordo che quando si è sposato Carlo con Diana, sono andati in viaggio, sono andati proprio dal Marchese. Io li ho visti proprio passare con la macchina. Quindi c'è questo rapporto ancora finora con gli inglesi. E tipo quello là dei Rolling Stones è stato lì, come si chiama? Mick Jagger. È stato lì per mesi e mesi, per più di 6-7 mesi, prima di comprarsi la casa in Sicilia. Quindi i nobili ormai, quelli che hanno ancora qualche possedimento, li stanno sfruttando in questo modo.
Sì. She says briefly, she says that all these estates now are devoted to tourism and to waiting staff, you know. So this is the Marchese San Giuliano started what it was, actually was the forerunner of organic food. So organic stuff, you know, as well as Prince Charles when he started this organic food with this logo. And also, she said that she met Charles and Diana when they got married. They went on a honeymoon to Carlentini and were hosted in this estate, this beautiful estate. Actually, the land that I still own was owned by the Marchese di San Giuliano. The area is called San Giuliano because, you know, my father bought this land in the 60s when they started to divide, to split all this food in small parts. So, you know, the landscape has changed dramatically, for the better, actually.
La mia bisnonna ha fatto la cuoca in casa del Marchese di San Giuliano.
Oh, her grandmother used to be the cook in the estate, in the countryside.
Yes.
So she knew the Marchese.
Il mio bisnonno era uno di quelli che portava avanti le terre, insomma, era un uomo di fiducia del Marchese di San Giuliano.
So because his grandfather, grandfather, yes, was loyal to this Marquis, and he used to run his business to help the business. Farming, of course, always farming.
Sì. E ora non si può entrare.
And now it's forbidden to get in.
When we were on the Rick Steves tour, they took us we were headed to Syracuse, and on the way there, we stopped at a venue that was right on the Lago di Lentini. And I forget the woman's name that operates that, but she came and spoke to us at one point. Does anybody remember her name?
Sì, aspetta, non mi sto ricordando, non so. Ce l'ho qua. Lo cerco, te lo dico, Nick. Ce l'ho. Giovanna si chiamava la signora, aspetta.
Dana, the place that you went when you made Cudrone, you remember the countryside, Zia Sarita? This land belonged to the Marquis. Aspetta un attimo, spiego a Dana. This land belonged to the Marquis we are talking about, and their estate they still own. It's just let's say 300 meters far away from that house that you used to go.
Allora, la signora che chiedeva Mick si chiama Giovanna Modica Notarbartolo.
Sì.
Oh yeah, Modica
Giovanna Modica,
Noto di Bartolo.
Notarbartolo.
Notarbartolo, scritto tutto unito,
Yeah.
Notarbartolo, Bar, con la R,
So
no?
that's a family that owns land very close to
Oh,
Lentini that still own the land, and they operate it as a
sì,
kind of a party venue type thing. They cook for you, and so we had a bus full of people that stopped there, and there were other groups that were there at the same time, which was kind of
sì, sì,
interesting
sì.
to talk to them as well. But they provided a banquet for us, a luncheon.
It's called, we call this agriturismo.
Sì.
Yeah.
Ci dobbiamo
Yeah.
andare, Nuccio, qualche volta che viene a Carlentini. Ho anche il numero di telefono da segnare, è molto gentile. Però.
Subito ci vengo.
La prossima volta.
I spend
Yeah,
all the
it
nights
seems like a lot of
eating.
these noble families have had to develop either they lose the property like in your family,
Yeah.
or they have to develop some sort of enterprise to support these grand properties.
Yeah. I switched my background photo to be one of the rooms so you could see how you
Questo
know
palazzo è de Caracciolo, De Gasperi,
uh
De Gasperi Caracciolo,
Pirmala.
Piromallo.
Piromalle.
Romano.
Poi a Milano ci sono i piromalli con la I, sono persone importanti per esempio.
Okay, so there's another question here from Jim. Bob, who did the work to find the way back to Charlemagne? Oh, and Bob replied, I found it and it was confirmed and mapped by Kai White.
Yeah, so I I was able because these people are so well documented. I was able to find most of it. But I was 90% sure everything I found was correct and I knew what I was talking about, but I actually confirmed that here in America because of the research he does. But then it was also confirmed um, by people in Italy. There was another genealogist there, and then also through my cousins that confirmed that what I thought. And there's one Caracciolo cousin who I guess he's my third or fourth cousin that's interested in this also. And so he did a hand drawn chart, at least back to Prince Ambrogio anyway. Didn't go all the way back as far as that. But like I said, Kai, he's written several books. He's also done a lot of documentation on the Crusades. And this kind of what he does now is maps out people's noble or royal ancestors, but specifically, he does it mostly for people, like I said earlier, of English descent.
But he did it for you.
Yeah, because he said if you tell me who your family is, I'll check it out, and if you're right, I'll do your chart. So and he's got all of
That's
these.
pretty cool.
He's got all of these noble books and all of this kind of stuff.
So I have a question for you. Aside from Nick Chimino, who were your most memorable guests?
Oh boy. I would have to say the most memorable ones are actually people that had stories that are really tough to believe are coincidental. So I'll give you a couple examples. One is the person who helped me, Alessandro from Bella Italia Genealogy. I interviewed him, and he said he had a client, and they went to his hometown, and they were walking down the street, and he said, out of nowhere, this little old woman came up to him and said, "Who are you?" So he explained who he was and that he was with a client who was looking for his family. And the woman said, "Come with me." And she goes down this alleyway and goes to this little chapel doorway and opens up the chapel, and they go inside, and it was a shrine to Santa Lucia. And inside this shrine, they had artifacts from all around the world that people had sent as a tribute. Originally, what they said was it was supposed to be gifts that they would use for the upkeep of this chapel or whatever, but it turned out to just kind of be a shrine. And so the woman said, what you're supposed to do is pick something up and put it over your eyes, because Santa Lucia is the patron saint of eyesight. So this guy picks something up, and he puts it towards his eyes. And he said, I don't believe this. So Alessandro said, you don't believe what? He said, this was sent by my great grandparents. It has their names on the inside. So out of all of this little old lady approaches him, takes him to this chapel, and he picks up out of 1,000 different things the thing that his grandparents said. So coincidence? I don't know. Another interesting one was I interviewed somebody, and it was
Before you move on, what was the name of that person that?
it's Alessandro Bovino from Bella Italia Genealogy.
Oh, okay.
So another very interesting one was the gentleman was he was researching his family, and he went to Italy with a friend and his family, and he said, well, where's your family from? And he gave him the name of the town. It was like the next town over. So he said, well, let's go there. Let's see if we can find your family. So, and this person really wasn't into the research. He was just in Italy to have a good time. But anyway, they went, and his name of all things is Napolitano. You know, there's a million Napolitanos, right? But anyway, they went to this town, and if they saw the name on the door, Napolitano, they're from Connecticut. They would ask if they knew anybody from Connecticut, and they would say no. So they gave up and they were leaving. And Richard's cousin said to him, before we leave, you have to stop at the fountain because the water comes right from the mountain. It's the best water you're ever going to taste. So they were there drinking the water, and this sanitation truck pulls up, and the person says, who are you? What are you doing? Same kind of question. And they said, oh, we were looking for this guy's family. He's from Connecticut. His name's Napolitano, but we couldn't find anything. We're on our way home. The truck driver said, follow me. So they followed him. He took them to his cousin's house. So, coincidence?
No.
You know?
No, Bob, it's not. And actually, we've had quite a few of these incidences ourselves. So it is truly divine intervention when they want us to know where we come from. And when I say they, I mean our ancestors.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. I've heard too many stories like this to think it's anything else.
Guarda, ti posso dire una cosa, che da quando io sono in questo gruppo sono riuscita a trovare tanti parenti delle persone che trovo in questo gruppo, perché in un paese piccolo come Carlentini, Lentini, ci conosciamo tutti. Per cui quando qualcuno mi dice, sai, io ho dei parenti che si chiamano così, così, ah, forse lo conosco perché una è stata mia collega, l'altra l'ho conosciuta a scuola, per dire, quindi per noi è abbastanza semplice poi trovare le connessioni con i parenti. Capisci?
She says that since she's been part of this group, she thinks that it has been a pleasure because she has been able to connect people from different parts of the states. Because in Carlentini, it is a small town. Everybody knows each other. So if you just mention a name, it's quite easy to find connections. And she said that it's always a pleasure. And, yeah, I share this idea because for example, last week I met Nino Micale, who used to meet Cherie, the lady who was founding.
Mm,
You know all the story.
sure.
So he was he was so excited, and she was so excited. She still considered myself a part of the family, even though I am not part of the family. But I'm part of this process, and this is mankind. It is love. This is heart. This is everything. I don't know. You call it as you like. But Silvana, I think that you share these ideas, that this makes you happy. And when something makes you happy, it's good for you, for everybody, for all the people around you. And also last week, when I met all these people that I usually met online or I met in Omaha,
L'anno
and then,
scorso, per
it is,
esempio, Teresa Garro è venuta
mm,
e mi ha detto, sai, i miei parenti si chiamano così, così. Appena lei ha detto quei nomi, io conoscevo una signora che ha lavorato con me e ho capito subito che era la sua parente, per cui subito so che parenti, con questa persona siamo andati a trovarli a casa, la signora a casa ha preso tutte le foto, insomma, è stato un momento veramente bellissimo.
there was,
So Bob, just for a little background,
yeah.
we are most of us have ancestry in the Syracuse province.
Mm,
There's others that have ancestry in Sant'Agata di Militello and another town up here along the coast of Messina province.
Sì.
And you know uh,
And that place.
the, the thing that we've been following and what Nuccio is talking about here right now is the Santa Lucia Festival in Carlentini. We have a group called Say de Carlentini, where a lot of the folks from Carlentini and the folks from that are part of the diaspora all over the world
mm,
participate in this. And this was one of the concerts that they had for Santa Lucia, and this is the dates for the festival, and this is the icon for Santa Lucia, or the statue rather, and there's Santa Lucia, and the procession through the streets, and then there's a group that's been there from Omaha, and so this is the mayor of Carlentini, and this is one of the councilmen from Omaha where they formalized the sister city relationship, and here's the young devotee.
mm.
Uh, People dressed in their finery. And here's some more devotees, some of the people that Lucio
I spent,
Catalano,
yeah,
he's married to a woman who grew up in Omaha, but
yeah.
went back and they got together. And so she's like the local tour guide or one of the local tour guides for Carlentini.
Bob, I
And
spent 3 days. I spent 3 days with them, eating, chatting. I had a lot of fun with them. I
Io
still
anche di
remember
più
that.
perché ci vediamo in chiesa, nel gruppo, figurati. Con la moglie.
This is
so
a
this is the
Omaha
Carlentini's
proper.
on a
Oh, wow,
hilltop,
beautiful.
and
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
we have a view of the sea and Mount Etna, and
Yeah.
Omaha.
but what they're showing right here is called the Parco Omaha.
Ah,
So a couple of years ago, the mayor dedicated this park to Omaha by naming it Parco Omaha, and more stuff about the
Old
Questa è una
picture.
cosentina.
Yeah.
Sì, questo è vecchio. Diciamo
older
che ormai
picture, yeah.
ormai è morto.
So all the stuff going on. The other thing that's kind of fun about this group is like Silvana's saying, I mean, she's like our local Facebook for Carlentini. So, but sometimes she doesn't know absolutely everyone. So a few times we have to post these queries. And I thought this was kind of interesting that a local person was posting a picture and saying, do you know who these people are?
Actually, these are my cousins, my father's cousins.
Castro, poi ha risposto cosa? Che non c'è,
Sì, ma
che non
sono
c'è Franco, perché sono i parenti di suo marito.
certo, quelli è sua mamma, suo papà è
Sì, 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 sì.
Zina.
There's
Zina.
a new painting that was done of Santa Lucia with her eyes on the plate and
Ma sai che cosa mi
the
è successo?
procession.
Luce? Mentre ero in piazza,
Sì.
si è avvicinata una
So
persona e mi ha detto,
the
tu
other
sei
group that we
Silvana?
have is we have our genealogy group, which is Genealogy Research Carlentini Omaha. But we also have Sherry started a group that's called Carlentini Omaha USA. And so this is where we're starting to migrate a lot of uh, our information. And so this would be a good one for you to check out if you get a chance to.
Yeah, well, yeah.
More stuff about the festival. In Omaha, we have coming up the La Festa Italiana, Friday, August 29th. And so we have volunteers, Dean Badiato, Gary Gibilisco, Jim Beckman are all going to serve as genealogy consultants for this event. And we also did that. We've done that for several years now at the Santa Lucia Festival, which was at the beginning of the month. And let's see what else we got going here. They had an event in Carlentini where they dedicated the amphitheater in the name of Subby Anzaldo, who's a former mayor of Omaha. And Subby's son sings Sinatra. He's a Las Vegas lounge singer. And, he was there, gave a concert.
This was on Thursday. This was on a Thursday night.
L'abbiamo visto.
Sì.
So this is a picture of Mayor Stefio and Mayor Stothert. Mayor Stothert lost the election, which those of us who are fond of this relationship, Carlentini Omaha, we're kind of sad to see her go because it would have been nice for her to be actually at that signing ceremony. But life goes on.
Right. Yeah.
So,
But we also have already met the new mayor. He sent a short video. Was it on Sunday? No, was it Saturday afternoon when they signed the twinning? So we saw him on the video.
So this is a great picture of the back of my hand
Sì.
talking to the mayor.
Comunque ci sono molte foto che ha pubblicato un certo
Costa.
This is some of the food that they're going to be serving at the Festa Italiana.
Oh.
And there's Bob Sorrentino. Thank you so much, Bob, for your presentation. And does anybody have any additional questions for Bob before he has to go? I mean, you're welcome to stay for the entire meeting. We usually go to like 4 o'clock.
No, I have to sign off by 4:30 anyway, so I have another appointment. But Otherwise, I
Volevo
live.
chiedere a Bob come mai la sua famiglia poi è emigrata in America.
She wonders why or how your family migrated to the States.
Oh, okay. So I can't say for sure. I think my mother's family came because World War II was just starting, and my grandfather had fought in the Libyan War, and somebody in my grandmother's family was here. That being said, I think maybe they were going to go back because they left my uncle Giovanni in Torito, and he didn't come until 1950 with his whole family. After a few years, he didn't want to leave Italy because he was raised by his grandparents. My father's family, I don't know. The only thing I could think of it too is, of course, the war was breaking out, and my grandmother's aunt was here in America, and her husband supposedly had some kind of a business, leather business. And so I think I can only guess that she said, "Well, come to America, and he'll help you. He'll help your husband go into business because my grandfather and his brother owned a they made bridal crowns and bridal veils in New York City in the 20s. So that's it's basically just guesses."
Eh sì, quindi possibilmente per evitare di andare in Grecia.
Perché c'erano già delle persone, è la storia un po' di tutte, c'erano già dei familiari, quindi questi sono aggregati, sono andati con gli altri. È la storia un po' di
So
tutte.
Bob, um, of course, you're welcome to save the chat log if you're interested, or if you want me to send them to you later. There's also a transcript for the meeting, which I'm going to save. If you'd like, I can send that as well. Or you can save the transcript yourself too if you need it right away. But
No, I don't need it. Yeah, if you want to send it to me when everything's done, that would be great. That would be great.
okay, super, I'll do it.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, everybody. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
The pleasure was all ours, Bob. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you,
and,
Bob.
and anybody who wants to do an interview, just let me know. Anybody who wants to be on my
All
show,
right.
let me know.
So
Well,
let me
thanks
know,
for that offer.
just to send me a reminder about the appointment in October, because there are so many things
Yeah,
going
I
around.
send everything about a week before, so I'll let you
Grazie.
know.
Grazie.
All right. Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao. Ciao.
Ciao
Bye.
Bob,
Ciao,
ciao.
Bob.
Ciao, Bob. Allora.
Wow, that was great. I've always been kind of intrigued by the nobles of Carlentini and Lentini, and but very few of us, I think, have noble ancestry. So it's interesting to hear from someone that actually has the noble ancestry.
No, non ne abbiamo origini nobili.
Noi, Nick, we say non abbiamo sangue blu. In italiano diceva we don't have blue
Blue
blood.
bloods. Yeah.
Not blue blood. I'm very sorry.
Volevo raccontare.
But we are nobles in our heart.
Ah, sì, questo
Yes,
sì.
that's right.
Volevo raccontare a Nick una cosa.
So, Mary Kay, are you with us at this point? I don't know if I can stop the recording or not.
Volevo raccontare una cosa a Nick.
I'm here.
Domenica ero in piazza.
Do you want me to stop it?
Ero in piazza
Yeah,
e
go
una
ahead and stop the
signora,
recording, please.